All right, guys, today we're going to be working on Lesson 8 of Chapter 3. It's on page 201 in your book. It's called Divide 3 and 4 Digit Dividends. So this lesson is very similar to the lesson that we did, I think, 2 or 3 days ago about just regular old division. We're going to need to know our acronym for this. We're going to want to use a paper or a whiteboard that has lots of space. I don't love the amount of space your book gives you for this. So if you want to make sure you're being precise and your answers are correct, you're going to want to use a separate sheet of paper. To divide a greater dividend, use the same process as dividing a 2-digit dividend. Example 1. In a 4-hour period, 852 people rode an amusement park ride. If the same number of people rode the ride each hour, how many people rode the ride in the first hour? My numbers here to work with are 4 and 852. 852 divided by 4 equals P. P stands for people. Okay? The reason why we were learning about estimation yesterday is so that you can look at this problem right away and kind of decide what your answer, what the ballpark of your answer is going to be. So before we start, it's saying to estimate 900 divided by 4, which is kind of, for me, I don't like that estimate because 900 and 4 are not easy numbers to work with together off the top of my head. I don't know those numbers. I do know 800, which, if I'm rounding by hundreds is not the closest, but it's going to get me somewhere around where I need to be. So 800 divided by 4 equals, 8 divided by 4 I know is 2. Bring over those 2 zeros. So I know my answer here should be somewhere around 200. Now, it could be 300, it could be 200. I'm not sure yet. I know it's not going to be like 94. I know it's not going to be like 25 because that's not nearly enough. It needs to be in the hundreds and it needs to be somewhere around 200. Okay, so let's see what happens. And that's the whole point of learning estimation, is so that you can first decide, is my answer, where my answer is going to be. And then when we finally get our answer, we decide, okay, is that around where my estimate was? Is my answer reasonable? And if yes, then it's probably correct. Okay, so actual problem here says 852 divided by 4. We're going to fill it in on here in a second, but like I said, for division problems, because there's so many steps and it's important to give yourself enough space, we're going to actually solve it right here. And I'm going to turn my paper long ways this time, and I'm going to write my problem like kind of toward the top, because these are going to be longer division problems, and we're going to have to travel down pretty far as we bring down as we go along. So you want to give yourself lots and lots of space. First thing I want to do, like I told you the other day, is write your acronym at the top of the page. Before you start any of your division problems, write that acronym at the top. It will only help you. Remember, the acronym is, does McDonald's sell burgers raw? Which of course stands for divide, multiply, subtract, bring down, and repeat or list the remainder. Okay, our problem is 852 divided by 4. And we're going to get started here. First step is to divide. Divide. Ask yourself the question, how many times can 4 go into 8? Perfectly 2 times. Multiply. 4 times 2 equals 8. Next step, subtract. 8 minus 8 is 0. Okay. Next step, bring down. I'm going to bring down this 5. Okay, next step, repeat. Time to divide again. How many times can 4 go into 5 without going over? Once. 1 times 4 equals 4. Next step, subtract. 5 minus 4, 1. Next step, B, bring down. Okay, so now I'm bringing all the way down here. You have to go in order, guys, and your arrows should always be staggered. That means you should never have 2 arrows exactly next to each other at the same length. There should always be like a short arrow and then a longer arrow, and sometimes even a longer arrow down here. Okay, so I brought down my 2. Next step, repeat, back to divide. 4 goes into 12. How many times? 3. 3 times 4. Remember, we're multiplying next, is 12. Next step is S subtract. 12 minus 12, 0. Do I need to repeat? No, because I don't have anything left to bring down. There is no remainder because I'm at 0 here. So my quotient is 213. Okay, if you want to fill that in here, that would be like this. Not necessary, but just in case you were doing it in your book as we went. I don't know if everybody has paper at home, but there you go. So how many people? 213. Now let's go back to our estimate. Is that close? Is 213 close to 200? Yes. So then we ask the question, is my answer reasonable? It is reasonable because it's close to my estimate that I made before I even got started. 213, so multiply to check your answer. When we multiply the quotient by the divisor. And if we get the dividend, then we have the correct answer. So let's check ourselves. 213 times 4. 3 times 4 is 12. Put the 2 down, carry the 1. 1 times 4 is 4, plus 1 is 5. 2 times 4 is 8. Is 852 what we were looking for? Yes. So we do have the correct answer. Alrighty, this one's a little bit longer. It looks like we're going to have a remainder here. Looks like there's going to be 3 staggered arrows. So good to know. I'm still going to do mine on a separate sheet of paper. Again, I'm going to leave myself, make my paper long ways, or portrait, I think this is called, and start kind of toward the top. First thing I'm going to do, write my acronym at the top every single time. Does, McDonald's, sell, burgers, raw, really means divide, multiply, subtract, bring down, and repeat or remainder. Okay, looks like this. 7,946 divided by 6. And we are ready to start this long division problem. Actually, oh my goodness, which step did Mrs. Armstrong forget? She forgot the estimation step, right? So we have 7,946 divided by 6, and we're just looking for an estimation. So we're going to bring down divide by 6. And when I look at 7,946, and I'm really just looking at the first 2 digits, 79, thinking what times 6 gets me close to 79? 6 times 2, what is 6 times 12 is 72, right? So 72 is the closest I'm going to get, probably 78. 6 times 3 is 78. 6 times 13, I mean, is 78. But let's just do 72 because we know up to our 12 times tables. Basic fact, 72 divided by 6, 12, 2 zeros to bring over. So I know my answer should be somewhere around 1,200, 1,200. Okay, so that's the first step, just to check to see where you're looking for your answer to be. And we just do that because if my answer is like 42, I know that that can't be right. If my answer is like 420, I know that that can't be right. It's nowhere near 1,200. So I want my answer to be around there. Okay, here we go. Divide, first step. 6 goes into 7 one time. 1 times 6 is 6. That was multiplying. Next step, subtract. 7 minus 6 equals 1. Next step, B for bring down. Okay, next step, repeat. Back to division. 6 goes into 19. How many times? Think of your fact triangles. 6 times 3 is 18. Subtract. 19 minus 18 is 1. Next step, bring down. This is why it's so important, guys, that you give yourself enough space, because look at even Mrs. Armstrong's, my numbers are kind of like leaning towards this way, and I tried to space them out and make them nice and big. Sometimes kids accidentally bring down the 6 because the 4 gets smushed in. Try to make your numbers big and space them out so that you're keeping track of everything in these nice straight lines. Next step, repeat. 6 goes into 14 how many times? 2. 2 times 6 is 12. Next step, subtract. 14 minus 12 is 2. Next step, bring down. Okay, look at my arrows here. I know I'm on the right track because my arrows are staggered, meaning they're not all the same length. 6 goes into 26 how many times? Well, 6 times 4 is 24. I think that's as close as I'm going to get. Subtract. 26 minus 24 is 2. Okay, now I have nothing left to bring down, so I can't do my B for bring down. And so I'm going to have to make that R my remainder. So 324 remainder of 2. I'm sorry, not 324. 1,324 remainder of 2. And let me go back. Is 1,324 close to 1,200? Yeah, pretty close. So it's probably the correct answer. Let's write it in here. 1, 3, 2, 4. Remainder of 2. My steps along the way looked like this. Okay. And I'm going to write in my answer here 1,324 remainder of 2. Now, when you want to check your answer to a division problem and there's a remainder, there's like one extra step you're going to do. So you are still going to take your divisor and multiply it by your quotient. So 1,324 times 6 will give me 7,944. And then all you're going to do is just add on the remainder. So 7,944 plus 2 gives me the dividend, 7,946. Okay, so that's all you have to do if you're checking with multiplication. All right, I'm going to do guided practice with you. Here we have 268 divided by 2. So a couple steps I'm going to do first. Off to the side, I'm going to make my estimate. Okay, so think of your 2 times tables. You know that you might know 26 divided by 2 is 13, but you might know that 24 divided by 2 is 12. Add the 0. My answer should be somewhere around 120, maybe between 120, 130, 140. We'll see. Does McDonald's sell burgers raw? Divide first. 2 divided by 2. 2 goes into 2 one time. Multiply. 1 times 2 is 2. Subtract. 2 minus 2 is 0. Bring down. Repeat. Back to division. 2 goes into 6 3 times. 3 times 2 is 6. Subtract. 6 minus 6 is 0. Bring down. 8. 2 goes into 8 how many times? 4. 4 times 2 is 8. 0. No remainder. So 134, is that close to 120? Yes. So that's a reasonable answer. All right, guys, today you are dividing numbers 2 through 16 of the independent practice. So that's going to be pages 203 and 204. You are actually dividing today. We are not estimating. So you're writing these out, make sure you put your acronym at the top. Does McDonald's sell burgers raw, to help you remember the steps along the way. And you're getting the actual answers for all of these problems. I'm looking at it right now, and oh my goodness, my brain does not like how tiny this space is for you. So if you can please put your work on a different sheet of paper or your whiteboard where you can spread out your numbers, I can already tell, looking at it like this, we're going to have some mistakes because you're going to be trying so hard to keep your numbers in line here and keep them so tiny that arrows are going to be in the wrong spot. We're going to forget to bring down other numbers. It's going to be a mess. So try doing it on a separate sheet of paper. Space your numbers out. Brain Builders 17 and 18 if you're up for an extra challenge with your division today. And try those Google form problems so I can see how you're doing. If you need extra help with this, I am happy to help you every day from 9:15 to 10 or 2:20 to 3:20. Please come to the live sessions if you need help. Hey guys, good luck.